Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into a story that's probably pretty familiar, but maybe has some surprises
Oh,
too?
it can be.
We're going to be looking at the life of David.
Oh, interesting.
He's definitely more than just that hero from Sunday school.
Right, right.
So we found this really cool YouTube video. It's from Black and White Bible.
Okay.
It's called The Incredible Story of David, a Man After God's Own Heart Bible Stories.
Wow, that's quite a title.
Right. And it's packed with insights about leadership
Mm-hmm.
and faith
Mm-hmm.
and those very human struggles that even these big heroes,
Yeah.
they face.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to put these figures on a pedestal, isn't it?
Right.
And just think of them as, the giant slayer or the poet king. But there's a whole journey there.
Exactly.
A whole life, a whole roller coaster of
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how those experiences shaped him into the leader that he became.
Okay, so picture this.
Right.
Young David, out in the fields,
Okay.
tending sheep. His father's sheep, actually.
Humble beginnings.
But exactly, like the start you'd picture
Right.
for a future king.
No, not at all. And that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
David's early life, it was anything BOT royal.
Yeah.
Yet here's this young man chosen by God,
Mm.
anointed by the prophet Samuel while he's still out there with the sheep. And
Yeah.
get this,
What?
it happened in secret.
Oh, yeah.
No fanfare, no big announcements. It's like, destiny was working behind the scenes.
Almost like secret training.
Yes.
Right.
Like a hidden training ground for leadership,
Totally, yeah.
I mean, think about it. Even out there in those fields, he's developing serious skills.
Oh, yeah. He's facing what? Lions and bears, right?
Exactly. Protecting his flock. That takes courage, compassion too, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And leadership, right. He's responsible for those sheep.
And those are the exact skills he needs later on.
Yeah.
It's like preparation.
You got it. See, even in those early days, he's honing those skills that would make him a great leader.
It's a good lesson for us, too.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever we're doing now, maybe it doesn't seem glamorous,
Mm-hmm.
but those are the skills
Exactly.
for something bigger.
We're always preparing, even if we don't see the bigger picture yet.
Right. Okay, now let's talk about the story that everyone knows.
Okay, which one?
David and Goliath.
Oh, the classic.
I know. You probably heard it a million times. But when you really think about those details,
Yeah, still pretty mind-blowing.
we're talking about Goliath being nearly 3 meters tall.
Wow, that's huge.
And that armor, it weighed over 50 kilograms.
Can you even imagine facing someone like that?
I can't. I totally can't.
And here's David, right? Armed with just his sling,
Yeah.
5 stones, and his faith.
Mm-hmm.
He takes down this giant... It's the ultimate underdog story.
Totally. But it's more than just winning a fight.
Oh, absolutely. Much deeper.
It's like David's courage.
Yeah.
That wasn't just, a one-time thing.
It was built over time. He faced those lions and bears.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
was ready for that moment.
We're not just thrown into our own Goliath moments, unprepared,
Right.
We're constantly being shaped and strengthened.
By those everyday challenges.
Exactly. By
Yeah.
everything we overcome.
Yeah. And it's not just about being brave. It's about trusting God, too, right?
What's striking here, is that David's victory, it wasn't just a military win.
Mm.
It was this huge declaration of his faith.
Public declaration, yeah.
He truly trusted that God would help him overcome this impossible thing.
It makes you think, what are our Goliaths?
Right? What feels impossible to us?
What are we facing that seems too big to handle?
And can our faith help us overcome those challenges?
That's a good question. Okay, shifting gears for a second.
All right.
Let's talk about David's relationship.
Okay, sure.
There's this bond he forms with Jonathan, Saul's son,
Right, right.
and it's deep, like really deep.
This wasn't just, casual friends.
No, the video even says that Jonathan gave David his own robe and tunic
Wow.
and his sword. Yeah, that's not just a hey buddy kind of gift, right?
No, not at all. You have to understand, in their culture, gifts like that, they were symbolic.
Oh, really?
It showed this deep connection, like
Uh-huh.
recognizing David's worthiness.
And almost like he was deserving of the throne someday, maybe?
It was a huge display of trust and loyalty, for sure.
But then there's Saul himself.
Ah, yes.
Heart things seem pretty good between them,
Right.
but then it all goes south pretty fast.
All because of jealousy.
It's kind of sad, right?
Yeah.
Like, you'd think the king would be secure in his power,
You'd think.
but it shows how easily success,
Yeah.
it can make people envious, even the ones who already have a lot.
It's a human thing, I think. A timeless struggle.
For sure. And for David, that jealousy leads to some pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, years of exile.
Years,
hmm
he's hiding in caves, betrayed by people he helped.
This wasn't a quick adventure.
No,
It was years of hardship.
constantly looking over his shoulder.
Right, and you know what's amazing? During those years, there were times when he could have easily taken revenge.
Oh, yeah.
The video mentions 2 specific times when he could have killed Saul.
And he didn't.
He refused.
Wow. Talk about taking the high road. Why do you think he held back?
It shows his character. He really respected authority.
Even when that authority was, completely wrong.
Even then, he believed it wasn't his place to take the throne by force.
He trusted God's timing.
Exactly. And it's a lesson for us too, right? Patience, restraint, and ultimately having faith that things will work out as they should.
It's tough, though, waiting like that.
It is. But sometimes it's the only way.
So finally, after all those years, all that uncertainty, Saul dies in battle,
Right.
and David becomes king. But I bet it wasn't all smooth sailing from there, right?
Not at all.
Right. Like, being chosen doesn't mean it's easy.
He becomes king of Judah first, then eventually all of Israel.
Yeah.
But he's constantly tested. Civil wars, assassination attempts. It's like leadership isn't just about wearing the crown. It's about navigating those tough challenges with wisdom, with courage, with resilience.
That's a lot to handle.
And even with all his victories, expanding Israel's borders, bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, David's reign,
Yeah.
it wasn't without some really dark moments. And that's where we have to talk about.
Bathsheba.
Yeah. We can't shy away from that.
A tough one.
It is. Adultery, deception, murder.
Hard to square that with the whole man after God's own heart idea.
It is. And the video doesn't try to make it pretty. It confronts it head on.
So how do we make sense of this? Like, how can someone who does those things?
It reminds us that even the greatest people are still human. They make terrible mistakes.
It's not about being perfect then.
Right. It's about what we do with those mistakes. The video highlights that. David's remorse, the consequences he faces.
Yeah. His child dies. There's turmoil in his family. That's not light stuff.
No. It shows that our actions have a price. There's a path to healing, to reconciliation. But it's a path we have to walk.
It's a story of grace, I guess, but also accountability.
Absolutely. Both. And this sets the stage for another twist in David's life.
His desire to build the temple, right?
That's right. And that's where we'll pick up next time. Stay tuned. It's going to get even more interesting.
Okay, I'm hooked. We'll be back for more of David's story.
See you then.
Okay, so last time we were talking about David and his big dream of building a temple for God.
It was a huge ambition, wasn't it? A pretty amazing vision for Israel's future.
But we know he doesn't actually get to build it, right?
Right. It's his son Solomon who ends up taking on that task.
But here's what I think is interesting.
What's that?
David doesn't just kind of shrug and say, well, not my problem anymore.
He doesn't.
No, he puts so much energy into getting things ready. The video really makes a point of showing how much he prepares.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Gathering materials, organizing the Levites, even coming up with detailed plans. It's like he's determined to make this temple happen, even if he can't be the one to finish it.
Wow. He's definitely thinking long term. Not just about himself, but about leaving something behind. Something that would last.
It makes you think about legacy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's not just about what we do while we're here. It's about what we set in motion.
Inspiring others.
Yeah.
Leaving things better than we found them.
Yeah. And I think David really got that. He was building more than a temple. He was building a legacy of faith.
And that's where his final instructions to Solomon, his successor, I think, are so powerful.
Oh, right. He doesn't just hand him the keys and walk away.
Nope. It's wisdom, counsel, urging Solomon to follow God's path, lead with justice, with integrity, almost like he's giving him a blueprint,
For good leadership, for a life well lived.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he took all those lessons, all those victories and failures, and poured them into Solomon, saying, okay, this is what I learned. Now take it and do even better.
Powerful stuff.
And it's not just Solomon either.
Oh, right. There's that scene.
He speaks to all of Israel, offers this prayer, praising God, thanking God.
Acknowledging that it wasn't all him, right?
It's like this big recognition that everything he achieved, every good thing, it was part of God's plan.
That's a good way to put it. A sense of closure, realizing that it wasn't just about him, it was about something bigger.
And then after a life that's just...
Whoa. More ups and downs than most people could handle, I'd say.
David dies. The video says he reigned for 40 years.
40 years. That's a long time.
But his impact, I think, it goes way beyond that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's the king, right? The ideal.
Like the gold standard.
Every king after him, they're going to be compared to David.
And then there are the Psalms. All those writings, all those raw emotions still speak to people today. And then,
The big one, the Davidic covenant.
right, that promise God made that his dynasty would last forever.
It's about more than just David's family, though.
Yeah, it points towards something bigger, a future hope.
A king who would rule perfectly, with total justice, total righteousness.
And centuries later, that king.
Jesus, the Messiah, a descendant of David.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. This shepherd from this little town, Bethlehem,
He wasn't perfect, but he was faithful.
and he changed the course of history for his nation, for the world.
David's story. It's a reminder that God can use anyone, ordinary people.
Yeah. He uses our strengths and our weaknesses to do incredible things.
It's about courage, faith, making mistakes, finding redemption, and in the end, leaving something that lasts.
It's been an amazing journey exploring David's life with you.
It has. We've seen the good, the bad, the struggles, the victories, and through it all, his devotion to God never wavered.
Definitely leaves you with a lot to think about.
As we finish up, I keep wondering, what about our stories? What are we doing with our lives? What kind of legacy are we building?
How are we reflecting God's heart in our own way?
Yeah, exactly. Big questions.
David's life makes us ask them.
It does. And maybe that's the best legacy of all, isn't it? Making us think, making us want to be better.
That's a great point. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep seeking, and keep those big questions coming.
All right, we're back. We're ready to finish up this deep dive into David's life.
I am. It's been quite a story so far, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've seen him go from shepherd to king, face down giants, lead armies. He's made mistakes, sought forgiveness.
A real roller coaster, that's for sure.
And now we're at the final chapter. But before we get there, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Okay, what's that?
Remember how much David wanted to build that temple for God?
Oh, yeah, it was a huge dream of his.
And he wasn't allowed to actually do it, right?
Right, that task fell to his son, Solomon. But even though he couldn't build it himself, David put everything he had into preparing for it.
The video really highlighted that.
Didn't it? Gathering those materials, organizing the Levites, drawing up plans.
It's like he was saying, okay, even if I can't see it finished, this temple will be built.
It speaks to his vision, thinking beyond his own lifetime.
It's all about legacy. Right?
Exactly. Leaving something behind that's bigger than yourself, something that inspires others.
And speaking of inspiring others, there's that moment where he gives his final instructions to Solomon, his successor.
Oh, right. He doesn't just hand over the crown and say, good luck.
No way. It's more than that. It's wisdom, it's advice, it's urging him to follow God's path, lead with justice and integrity.
Almost like passing down a blueprint for how to be a good king, a good leader.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it feels like he's taking all those lessons from all those years, all those battles, those mistakes he made, and he's pouring them into Solomon.
Yeah. Like, here's what I've learned, kid. Take it and do even better than I did.
Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah.
And it's not just Solomon who gets this wisdom.
Oh, right. There's that scene where he addresses all of Israel.
The whole assembly. He gives this incredible prayer, praising God, giving thanks.
Acknowledging that he wasn't the one in control.
Yeah, like everything he had accomplished, every victory, every challenge, it was all part of something bigger.
God planned.
And then after all that, after a life that was, wow.
More adventure than most people could handle in 10 lifetimes.
He dies. Reigned for 40 years, the video says.
40 years. That's a long time to lead a nation. But his impact, that goes way beyond those years.
For sure. He's remembered as the ideal king.
The standard. Every king after him is going to be measured against David.
And then there are the Psalms, all those writings, so raw and honest.
People still find comfort in them today. Still find truth in them.
And let's not forget that Davidic covenant. The promise of an everlasting dynasty.
Oh, right. But it's more than just about David's family line, isn't it?
Yeah, it points to something much bigger. A hope for the future.
A king who would rule perfectly, with total justice and righteousness.
And we know who that king is, right?
Centuries later, it's revealed Jesus, the Messiah.
A descendant of David.
It's pretty mind-blowing, this shepherd boy, this flawed but faithful man.
He changed everything. For his nation, for the world, for our understanding of faith.
David's story reminds us that God can use anyone. It doesn't matter where you come from, what mistakes you've made,
Yeah, he could use your strengths, your
to
weaknesses.
accomplish incredible things.
It's a story about courage, about faith, about falling down and getting back up, about leaving a mark on the world that lasts.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I can't help but wonder about our own stories.
Yeah, what are WE doing with our lives? What kind of legacy are we building?
How are we reflecting God's heart in our own way?
These are the big questions, right?
They are. And maybe that's the best legacy of all. Not just achieving great things, but inspiring others to ask those questions, to search for those answers, to live a life that matters.
I think you're right. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life of David. It's been an amazing journey.
It has. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep seeking.
And we'll see you back here for another deep dive soon.